Have you ever wanted to listen to two guys talk about video games and pop culture news? Well, this podcast is just for you. Hi, I'm Eric.
And I'm David.
Welcome to the first episode of the Press Start podcast. Like we just said, this is going to be the introduction episode for the Press Start podcast. And as you guys can tell, this is going to be primarily focusing on gaming news and pop culture news, as being two journalists that love those two mediums and entities and everything included in pop culture.
Exactly. So, everything video games, everything pop culture, we are all about it.
Yeah, so we hope you will enjoy listening to us.
Yeah, if you guys love us, then we'll be here. We'll be here every week.
I hope so, yeah.
All right. This week we wanted to start off with a prompt. Why am I sounding so formal? Eric, what are your top three gaming franchises? What would you say? What top three gaming franchises define gaming for you?
So I would say, I love a lot of video games, but for me, my top three, at least currently, I would say number 3 is Dead Space, which is a horror survival game, if people are aware.
Actually, did you want to go? Did you want to go one by one? Like you give your 3, I give my 3, you give your 2, and I give my 2, and then
we can do that.
Okay, cool. Okay, so you said Dead Space.
Yeah. So my number 3 favorite video game franchise is Dead Space. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure if you played it before, David, but basically it's a survival horror game set a couple hundred years in the future. Mm-hmm. And it's basically Resident Evil in space. It's close to being a 20-year franchise now, which is pretty crazy to think about. It's basically Resident Evil in space, but more dark, I would say. You're definitely not going to see a scene of someone punching a boulder into lava, for example, referencing Resident Evil 5 there. It's focused on one character called Isaac Clarke. And he's an engineer, and it's basically about him defeating more or less space zombies and dealing with the psychological effects of that in each game.
Doesn't he straight up kind of go crazy through each game?
Pretty much, yeah. And there were 3 main games over the initial release of the game series, and they recently remade the first one for PlayStation 5 and other modern consoles. Yeah. And the newer one really went into the psychological effects. He's truly crazy in that one.
Really? Okay. Wow.
It's a fun game.
Yeah, I heard really good things about the remake, and then I also heard that they, I don't know if they have any plans to do a Dead Space 2, the Dead Space 2 remake, but from what I've heard, people really like the newest one that just came out. I haven't picked it up myself. Like I said, not a big fan of horror. It's been slightly on my radar. I've been on the fence about picking it up, but I probably have to play it during the daytime or something.
Well, if you ever want to check it out, I did do a full walkthrough of it on my YouTube channel, Tape Ball Productions.
Boom, there you go. Hey, the shameless self-promotion. I dig it.
Yeah. But what about you, David? What's your number 3 favorite video game franchises?
This changes. So people, if you're listening, don't hold me to this. I don't expect anyone to actually come up to me and say, why is your third favorite different? Because no one knows who I am. Anyway, my third favorite, I'm going to say, is Fire Emblem.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm a huge Nintendo fan. I grew up with a lot of Nintendo games. My first video game actually was Pokemon Yellow. But I'm going to say that my third favorite video game franchise is Fire Emblem. I haven't played a lot of them, but from what I have played, I absolutely love Fire Emblem. It's a tactical RPG. It's kind of like chess, sort of, but like with fighters and people on horses and whatnot. And like usually there's the plot. It changes from game to game. The core elements are like, hey, there might be like two kingdoms fighting or whatever, and it's turn-based, basically. It's turn-based RPG, and you go along, and one of the core mechanics in the game, if you're like a real big tactical RPG fan, is there's the permadeath feature. If they die in the game, if they die like on the battlefield, then you can't use them anymore. That's what the permadeath thing means. Yeah, so people who are like really hardcore about those games, they play with the permadeath thing. I don't, because I'm much more of a casual gamer. But I really like the story of Fire Emblem, and as a kid, I never really liked tactical RPGs because they just kind of were a little boring, sort of. I'll circle back to that in a little bit because one of my choices is kind of ironic given my sort of dislike for the whole turn-based when I was a kid. But Fire Emblem, I love it.
Yeah, I've never played any Fire Emblem games. The only connection I have to Fire Emblem is like Ike in Super Smash Brothers.
Okay, yeah. So, the West back then, Fire Emblem was really, really big in Japan, and it still is. It's still it's huge. And back in, when was Smash Bros. Released? Like 2000, 2001? 2000, I believe.
The first one?
No, the second one, Melee.
Oh, yeah, I think it was like 2003 or something like that, yeah.
I feel like it was a little earlier than that, but maybe.
It was definitely for the GameCube. I know.
Yeah, it's for the GameCube. Yeah. So most of Western audiences' experience with Fire Emblem really kind of came down to Super Smash Bros. Melee, because Marth and Roy, those are two characters within the Fire Emblem franchise. They were added to the game as secret characters because, as you know, for anyone who's listening, if you haven't played Super Smash Bros., which first of all, what are you doing? You should get on it right now. It's a really popular game. Melee is arguably one of the best ones.
For me personally, I like Brawl more just because of the campaign that has.
Fire Emblem characters were in Smash Bros. Melee. Those were people in the West over here in America first exposure to those characters, and they gained a lot of popularity. And because of that, Nintendo decided to port more games over to the West. I forget. It wasn't Radiant Dawn. Maybe it was Radiant something with that character Ike that you're talking about. It came out for the GameCube, and the game is wildly expensive now. As most retro, I don't like saying the GameCube is retro, but most retro games are now because of Melee. And because of people, really enjoying Marth and Roy, Fire Emblem has, grown in popularity over here. It's funny enough, though, back in 2012, popularity in the series had kind of waned a little bit. And around that time, I believe the 3DS was released in 2011. And Nintendo was like, hey, we're kind of going to shelf Fire Emblem and not really make any more games. But if you want to put out another one, it's in the studio who released the next game that I'm going to chat about. They were like, okay, well, we're going to throw everything to the wall, see what sticks. And this has got to be the best game ever. And that game is called Fire Emblem Awakening. And that actually is the first Fire Emblem game that I ever played. And that game was phenomenal, and it sparked a resurgence in the series. And now we have, dare I say, too many Fire Emblem games out. So
I do remember seeing the trailers for the 3DS.
Yeah.
But I never got it.
Okay, never.
Yeah, the only games I have on my 3DS are Pokemon games.
Okay, nice. I don't even have a 3DS anymore. I sold that to get my Switch. So
yeah.
But there are Fire Emblem games on Switch now. Like I said, there's too many. Dare I say, too many. So that's my number 3. All right, what about you? What's your number 2?
So for my number 2, it's a hard decision, but I'd probably go with Assassin's Creed.
That doesn't surprise me, actually. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Oh, I know you're number one.
Yeah, we'll get there eventually.
Yeah.
But for Assassin's Creed, people don't know. Assassin's Creed is a also almost 20-year-old franchise.
Yeah, we're really showing our age here. Well, actually, no, I'm a bit older than you. Well, let's not talk about that.
But yeah, Assassin's Creed, it's basically in its simplest form, it's where you get to play into certain periods of human history, and you play usually as assassins.
An assassin.
From this like brotherhood of assassins that are trained to take out people in order to protect the virtues of the public, I guess you can say, in the simplest form, although they don't always get there. For example, the first game takes place in the end of the third crusade, so around the 1200s. Mm-hmm. And then they go forward in time throughout the series, eventually up to the Industrial Revolution in England. And then in recent games, they went back in time to ancient Egypt, then further back in time to ancient Greece, and then a little bit forward in time to the Viking Age. And just recently, they announced the next game is going to be taking place in feudal Japan around the end of the Renaissance period. And the one reason why I really liked those games is not just for being a cool assassin with their iconic hidden blade underneath their wrists. I just really liked how it kind of spotlighted parts of history that you don't really see a lot, especially in schools.
Yeah,
like for me, like I'm a big historian, like you said before, but I didn't really know anything about the Crusades or like other Middle Eastern history until I played the first Assassin's Creed game and others that go into the Middle Eastern areas. And not to say Assassin's Creed is one-to-one exactly historically accurate.
What are you talking about? Every video game depicting history is exactly how it happened, Eric.
I know, right? Like, of course there were, like, minotaurs in ancient Greece, you know? It's
definitely.
That's a little dodge to Assassin's Creed Odyssey, which, in my opinion, is the worst, because Assassin's Creed has always been more focused in kind of realistic history. Give or take an ancient alien race. But
wait, hold on. I'm sorry. They're actually aliens in the Assassin's Creed universe? What are you talking about?
They're not really aliens. They're like an ancient other humans, not a human, but another ancient sentient race.
That's an alien, dog.
Yeah. I mean, but they didn't come from space. It's weird. It's weird. But that's like the worst part about Assassin's Creed games is that kind of.
Didn't they kind of drop all of that stuff after like the third game, or am I just imagining that?
They kind of did. They lessened it a lot, but they're still there. Usually to address why there's like mythological creatures now in modern games.
Okay, that sounds weird, but sure, go on.
It's very weird. Like you go from like. You know, like in, let me see, like in, for example, in, like Assassin's Creed 4, you're fighting with, Blackbeard, and you're fighting against, like, the British and Spanish Navy, to Assassin's Creed Odyssey, where you go to literal ancient Atlantis that's populated by ancient aliens, and it's like, what are you doing? But that's my vibe.
That's weird, because like the last thing I remember about Assassin's Creed is this was years ago, I got Assassin's Creed 3 for Christmas, and
that was my first Assassin's Creed game.
It was a cool game. I never finished it, but I remember all the weird like sit in the chair and put the thing on, and then you become the guy, and then, you know, you're doing your thing. I'm doing, that's not, wrong franchise. But I don't remember, I feel like after that is where it kind of got weird.
Well, I mean, originally, it was that, these people, there was this company called Abstergo, and they created this machine called the Animus. Yes, and what it was is that people can go into the Animus and they can re-experience their ancestors' memory in their own DNA. So like in the first few set of games in Assassin's Creed, you play as this guy called Desmond Miles, and you relive through his ancestors' memories. Yeah. So every time you're in the ancient Middle East or the Renaissance Italy or Revolutionary America, that's all of his ancestors. But in modern Assassin's Creed games, they upgrade the Animus. They were less lazy. And so you can just like stick something into like a person's mummified corpse and play through their memories that way. So
it sounds disgusting, but anyway.
I mean, I kind of described it. It's kind of weird that way, but that's how it is in Assassin's Creed Origins and Odyssey and Valhalla. So
okay, the new one looks kind of cool because like I want to be a black samurai. That sounds dope.
Yeah, I'm excited for it.
Yeah.
But what about you? What's your second favorite?
So my second favorite video game franchise would have to be, oh goodness, wow, I don't even. You know what? I'm gonna say The Legend of Zelda.
Okay.
I'm gonna say The Legend of Zelda. From an early age, I don't know, like from how it was described to me as a kid, there's this, I think literally because it's The Legend of Zelda, and I think also back then, there wasn't I didn't have as much access to like video game magazines and stuff like that. So to me, the game, again, like the story around it kind of felt very mythical. Mm-hmm. And whatnot. And, you know, you start up, I think back when I was a kid, what games were out? There was like Oracle of Seasons and Oracle of Ages. I remember those games. I remember Ocarina of Time on the N64. And, that was, and then I remember the release of Wind Waker. That was really big. I liked that style. I never got to play that one, but, I guess I thought, oh, hey, this has the Legend of Zelda, but like there's a different name. But I kind of thought that, isn't this the same story? But like it wasn't. So you played like one of the Game Boy games, which is like Oracle of Seasons or Oracle of Ages. Or there's plenty of other titles for Game Boy. There's plenty of other Zelda titles for the Game Boy is what I meant to say. And, you know, all of them, they all kind of fell like a loose story, but you play as the character Link, or whatever you want to name him. And he has to go and save Princess Zelda, or in, you know, different games, it's a similar kind of a thing where like something happens as a princess or whatever, and like you have to go and either collect some sort of stones or collect some sort of gems or whatever, bring them somewhere, some other stuff happens, bad guy appears, yada yada. It's a whole mix of stuff. But what really interested me is, like I said, the whole like story around it, how everything just kind of felt like, hey, I'm playing one game and then, what's going on with this game? Like, so like I'd be playing like Oracle of Seasons, Oracle of Ages, which those games go hand in hand. I learned out much later. I did a lot of research on it, and like those games were developed together. They were supposed to be one game, but they ended up splitting them, which I think is pretty cool. But if you had like a certain adapter or something like that, if you finished, say, Oracle of Seasons and then Oracle of Ages, then you could unlock like a secret ending or some sort of not maybe a third game or something like that. But then there was also Ocarina of Time, which was really cool because that was like the first 3D Zelda. And that blew everyone's mind. That blew, like, it was praised, and it's still praised as one of the best Zelda games today. Well, it's kind of been dethroned, but everyone, you know, has a soft spot. If you're a Zelda fan, you have a soft spot for Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask too. I remember that. That was always, you know, the much darker, weirder, creepier one. But I, like I said, was always interested in, you know, the disjointed story and how they kind of connected, because there were some of the similar themes throughout the games, which is like the Triforce, it's like, I'm sure, you know, people are going to come at me, you know, if they listen to us, they're going to come at me in the comments, be like, the Triforce is this, you dork, sure. Like you claim to be a fan of games, blah, blah, you know, but And for those listening who care, it's a mythical. How would you describe it? Like it's a thing, but it's like a.
I can't help you here because I've never played a Legend of Zelda game.
You've never played a Zelda game?
I know, it's like video game heresy, but I've never played a Zelda game.
You gotta. What's your, just no interest, or like, are you apprehensive about it? What's going on?
I just never had the time. Like, I have Ocarina of Time for the 3DS, but I just
never got the best way to play.
I know.
That's the best way to play. You just got to sit down one afternoon and just go. I can understand like a little bit of not a learning curve, but I can understand some apprehension about it, because when I played, I didn't know what was going on. You get lost very easily. There's a lot of mechanics in there, things that like maybe a kid wouldn't be able to figure out right away. Because that was me. But I've always liked, that mythical element to it. It's always been a really fun game, and it's a fun adventure. And I like how, every game is just a little bit different. And they're all connected really loosely. I have the whole Hyrule Historia thing, in my room. And I really like that. But like, that whole timeline situation isn't really a thing, but it kind of is. But that's my answer. Legend of Zelda.
Nice. I mean, I have been meaning to play it, and I have played a little bit of Breath of the Wild, and
it's so good.
What's the new one that just came out?
Tears of the Kingdom.
Yeah, because my nephews played it, and sometimes they'll have me try and get them out of puzzles. And I'm like, I've never played Legend of Zelda, but
yeah, you're like, I don't know what the hell this is.
Yeah.
I haven't played Tears of the Kingdom. I still haven't even finished Breath of the Wild. I have one Divine Beast to do, and then I want to do a bunch of the side quests too. And honestly, that's one of the cool things, at least with like the newer Zelda games. You can just get lost exploring. That's half the fun of it. It's like the world is like, well, in the past Zelda games, there was much more of a linear story. You'd go through dungeons and you collect items, and you'd follow the story and then defeat the bad guy. Some games it's Ganon, some games it's Ganondorf, and some games it's someone completely different. Do you have a Game Boy still, or Game Boy Advance or anything?
I have a DS. I can play Game Boy games.
Oh, okay, like the old fat one.
Yeah.
Okay, actually, you have a Switch?
No.
Okay, we should get one. But I was gonna suggest you should play the Minish Cap, because that was a Zelda game for the Game Boy Advance, and that game is phenomenal. Never finished it, but but it was a great game. But yeah, that's my answer. Legend of Zelda.
Nice.
Okay, we're on to your number one, right?
All right. So for my number one, for people who know me, it's going to be a pretty easy answer, and my favorite video game franchise of all time, probably forever, is Halo.
Yep.
Now, if people don't know, Halo is, I would say, one of the most important video game franchises out there, because it basically created the modern multiplayer system that we still play today, more or less, especially console multiplayer. But the reason why I like Halo is for its story and world building. So Halo is set roughly 500 years in the future, where humans have colonized thousands of space planets, or other planets, I guess. And in the midst of a human civil war, an religious conglomerate of aliens called the Covenant attack, believing humans to be like heretics to their religion, and they start wiping out the entire human race. And the only way the humans are able to defend themselves successfully are with the super soldiers called Spartans, with the best of them being the Master Chief, the player for most of the Halo games. And eventually they find this ancient forerunner, another ancient alien species, just like Assassin's Creed.
Yeah.
They find ancient giant space installation shaped like a ring, and they call it Halo, hence the title of the series. And it's revealed that, spoilers for a over 20-year-old video game, by the way, that humanity is designated to be the reclaimers of this ancient human race and their technology, and every sentient being in the galaxy was killed thousands of years ago with the Halos, because the Halos are revealed to be a weapon against this galaxy-destroying zombie-like parasite called the Flood. And eventually throughout the games,
they get worse and worse and worse, and
some of them get pretty bad.
No, sorry, keep talking. I'm terrible.
Halo 5 sucks. Just gonna say it. That's the worst one. But I like the games more for their story, but also for the characters. Halo kind of taught me that you can you can find friends with anyone and anywhere. Especially with the character of the Arbiter in the Halo games, who was a member of the Alien Covenant, but eventually gained compassion for the humans per se, and eventually became friends with them, and together they basically saved the human race, him and Master Chief. But yeah, I've been a huge fan. I've got full bookshelves full of Halo books. I got Halo posters. I got all the games. I've met Steve Downes, the voice of the Master Chief, and Keith David, the voice of the Arbiter. Still hoping to meet Jen Taylor, the voice of Cortana, one day. But yeah, in the music of Halo is just
the music's good.
I would say the original Halo soundtrack, composed by Marty O'Donnell and Michael Salvatore, I would say it's as good as all of Jeff or John Williams's music in movies, like Star Wars and stuff. Anytime I'm studying or just want to chill out or I'm writing, I always go out and listen to the Halo soundtracks, especially Halo Combat Evolved soundtrack and Halo 3 ODSTs.
Okay, nice. Yeah, my experience with Halo, it's I played it way back in the day, back when it released for Xbox, but I didn't know what I was playing back then. I had interest in other things, so I played, but it didn't really register. And then as I got older, I missed Halo 2, and then I think I played Halo 3. That was really when I kind of was gaming with friends and stuff in high school. And what was it? It was what came first? No, what came first? ODST, then 3, or 3 then ODST? And it
was Halo 3 came out and then ODST did, but ODST takes place before Halo 3.
Right, and then after that was Halo Reach, right?
Yeah.
Okay,
and that was the last one that Bungie made. Halo years.
And Halo Reach is my favorite. It's by far my favorite.
I would probably agree, at least multiplayer wise.
Yeah. Oh, okay. See, I like the campaign. I never really played the multiplayer, so yeah. Honestly, it still gets me. Because I knew some of the history. I'll just say, again, spoilers. Master Chief and all the Spartans, they were. I'm gonna tell this, and you're going to hate me because you're gonna be like, no. This is from my perspective, but from what I can remember, there were all these Earth colonies, right? And then they got a signal that I'm talking about the game Halo Reach here for those listening. And they got a signal that there was a Covenant fleet coming to Earth.
Yeah, to Reach. Yeah.
Reach, yeah. And they sent out I don't really remember the exact specifics, but I just know that I was part of a, hold on, let me think. Main character, there was a 4 or 5 man squad, right?
6. Like you were the sixth player. Yeah.
Halo 6. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Well, Noble 6.
Noble 6. There you go. And I just remember playing that game and like won. And so basically, there was a Covenant fleet that was coming because there was something signaled on one of the planets, right? And then like the Covenant was like, "Ooh, let's go there." Oh yes, yeah. They found Reach, which is the home of the Spartans, and the Spartans were trying to, obviously stop that from happening. And long story short, Halo 6 is picked off one by one. You learn a lot about the characters, and I felt invested. That's why, like, when all that happened, I'm like, no!
Yeah.
But
it's a very sad game.
It still gets me. The Covenant found Reach and they ended up glassing the planet, which they just straight up bombed it and like made it uninhabitable. But like wasn't there were like very, 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 very few Spartans, like 2, right?
Yeah.
3?
I mean, there's a lot more that survived, but in the original ending, like when Halo Combat Evolved, Halo 1, for people who don't know, comes out, takes place right after Halo Reach. Yeah,
like directly after.
Everyone thought that Master Chief, who was the lone Spartan to get out of there, they thought he was the last one, but eventually
there are a couple others. So and like right when when Halo Reach ends, like because it ends with the planet basically getting destroyed and you end up falling. But the cool thing is and this is actually a connection kind of to Star Wars, sort of, where like Halo 6 ended up perishing, unfortunately, but through their sacrifice, they ended up getting Cortana to Master Chief.
Yeah,
which I forget the significance of that, but it's a big deal. He goes crazy. I don't know. But
plus he had the coordinates to the Halo ring.
That's what it was. Yeah, so they were like, get her to Master Chief. And then, yada, yada. Halo Reach is my favorite game in the Halo franchise.
It's a great one.
It is.
Yeah, I still have fond memories.
What about...
every now and then.
I don't have my Xbox anymore. I still play.
But what's your number one?
Oh, right. Honestly, I was going to ask you about your. I'll say that. So my number one franchise is Pokemon.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Pokemon. I love Pokemon. I have a Pokemon tattoo, which I know you've seen.
That's a Pikachu and Red tattoo, if you guys couldn't tell. If you guys aren't listening.
Yeah, if you guys are listening, it's a Pikachu and Red tattoo. And, I mentioned this before. It was one of the first games that I ever played. I got a Game Boy Color for either Christmas or my birthday one year, and Pokemon Yellow was one of the games. Or maybe it was a gift. I truly do not remember. I think it may have just been a gift. But yeah, Pokemon Yellow, first game that I ever really played. The game was so frustrating in the beginning because I got lost. I didn't understand this or that. You're a kid, so you don't understand anything about type matchups and whatnot. But playing that game and then also watching the show back when I was a kid, it was really cool because Pokemon back in the late 90s, you had Japan released Pokemon Red and Blue Red and Green.
Yep.
Excuse me, Red and Green, and then over in the West here in America, a few years later, they released Pokemon Red and Blue.
Yeah.
And then a couple years later, maybe a year or two later, they released Pokemon Yellow. So Red and Blue, they're their own things. They kind of mirror each other. You have different Pokemon in Red, different Pokemon in Blue. I'm sure that people who are listening are like, we know this, but I'm recapping for people who don't. And Pokemon Yellow, it loosely follows the anime. So you have a Pikachu, it's a Pokemon that follows you around. You interact with Team Rocket. You have, the Pokemon Yellow Pokemon, all that good stuff. So it mirrored the show, and I thought that was really cool. And then as I got older, some of my friends, I remember playing Pokemon Yellow and then sort of checking out. I played a little bit of Pokemon Gold and Silver, which are, if you had to ask me my favorite, well, I'll get to that in a little bit. But I remember, as I got older, I saw one of my friends on the bus was like, "Oh, David, you like Pokemon? Yeah. Look at this. I'm running in one of the games." And I was like, what? That blew my mind because you couldn't run in the games. You got a bike. Eventually, and you could, take the bike around and stuff. But Pokemon, the games that you could run was Ruby and Sapphire.
Yeah.
And those, that to me, that changed the game. You could run. It was much better graphics. You had double battles. So, normally in Pokemon, it's a turn-based, which I mentioned turn-based back in Fire Emblem, and I said that it's ironic that it's one of my favorites because as a kid I didn't like turn-based games, but my favorite franchise is Pokemon, and what do? It's a turn-based battle system, so make it make sense, right? And I was talking about Ruby and Sapphire. Those games, they changed the game, and with every Pokemon game, they introduce some sort of new mechanic or some sort of new, I don't know. Well, now I'd say gimmick. Back then it was a mechanic. Now I'd say it's more of a gimmick. But they release, some sort of a new feature. With Pokemon Red and Blue and Yellow, you can trade Pokemon. And with Pokemon Gold and Silver, they introduced the day and night cycle. You can evolve. And what?
Breeding.
Oh, breeding. Yeah, Pokemon breeding. That's right. So, if you want a male Snubble, you could, take a Ditto. And I'm getting way too into it. But the cool thing is they would release a new mechanic with every game, and then with the new games, you could run, you could, what else? There was the double battles, there were just all sorts of stuff. And I've played a lot of them. There were some games that I skipped out on, but I went back to with some of the re-releases. And right now I'm playing, Scarlet and Violet. I'm playing Scarlet. And it's fun. The graphics are not that good, and I know people have a lot of complaints about it. That's been a big topic of contention there. But it's one of my favorites.
Yeah, I would agree. Pokemon's probably in the top 5 for me, not the top 3 necessarily. But yeah, Pokemon is just a lot of fun all the way around. My first Pokemon games were Diamond and Pearl and Platinum.
Okay, that makes sense.
Although I did play a lot of Ruby and Emerald and Fire Red and Leaf Green and stuff. A lot of the older games I eventually played. And they're just a ton of fun. Getting connected with your Pokemon, giving them fun nicknames, figuring out how to evolve certain ones, or trading with friends, battling with friends, all that stuff, and trying to get shinies. Pokemon is just endless fun all the way around.
Agreed.
And it's just, there's a reason why it's probably Nintendo's second most popular IP after Mario.
Oh, I was gonna say no, it is, but Mario definitely is the top for it's the face of the brand. But Pokemon is the highest grossing IP in the world.
Yeah, I'm not surprised.
Yeah, neither am I. Right now it's so bad. Right now, you don't have a Switch, but Pokemon Unite, it's a MOBA that's out for Switch and for mobile, and that has me I'm gripped right now. I'm stuck playing it. I'm trying to break away because actually what I want to talk about is they just released this new I guess MOBA, I don't know, Star Wars Hunters.
Yes, I did see that.
Yeah, and you play as different classes. It's kind of like Overwatch, but like with Star Wars, it's not quite the same, but it's similar mechanics. And I've been wanting to get into more like battle royale games like that. But yeah, I want to go back and I want to ask. So like, yeah, man, what is your like for each of the I know we kind of talked about it a little bit, but like for each of the franchises, like what would you say is like your favorite game in each franchise?
It's hard. For Dead Space, there's not a lot of games. I would probably say, I don't know, the original and the remake are really good. But I probably would go with Dead Space 2 for my favorite. Just because it's definitely more scary than Dead Space 1, and it's kind of more action-packed, and there's more of a story to it. Because, like, in the original game, Isaac didn't talk at all, so it was just kind of like environmental storytelling. But in Dead Space 2, Isaac got a voice, so he was more of a character. And it's just, I remember, because Dead Space 2 was the first Dead Space game I ever played, and I remember convincing my parents to get it for me, and I got it the same time I got this Afterglow Xbox 360 controller that would light up green. So I remember getting it like the night my parents got it for me. I remember playing it in the dark with my glow up controller, and it was just a blast.
That's awesome.
For Assassin's Creed, I would probably give it a tie between Assassin's Creed 3 and Origins. Assassin's Creed 3, like I said before, was my first game into the franchise, so just connected with that. And also, living in New England, it's just really cool getting to live some of this important history that would impact all of America, and getting to see some cool places that we can still visit today. And Origins was the game that kind of got me back into the franchise, and it was just the story with the origins of the assassins and Bayek and Aya, which were the two main characters in the game, and just the world of ancient Egypt they were able to create. It's just so enthralling, and it was the first Assassin's Creed game I 100% perfected, like all the achievements and everything. It's just an incredible game. And honestly, it was a huge disappointment after that. But same with Valhalla, in my opinion. So hopefully Shadows isn't a disappointment, but we'll see.
Fingers crossed.
And for Halo, it's really hard because all of them have their pros, but for different reasons. And I do love Halo Reach, mostly because of all the multiplayer memories I have as a kid, like making friends on Xbox Live and just playing a ton of Forge matches and everything. But I would probably say my favorite is Halo 3, I would say. Just because I think it's the most well-balanced of the Halo games. Like, it has an incredible campaign, pretty good multiplayer. I want to say it's the best, but it's definitely great. And there's tons of enemy variety. The story is incredible. And the music is just amazing. It's probably peak Marty and Michael Salvatore music. Really hoping they'll remake it soon, get a Halo 3 anniversary, but who knows? But what about you, David? What about for Fire Emblem, Legend of Zelda, Pokemon?
Notice how I pick like all Nintendo franchises. Because honestly, like I don't really play much else. Well, actually, if we are talking about some other stuff that I have been playing, I have Spider-Man 2, I have Miles Morales, I have the Entitled Goose Game, which you got me. Thank you. And then I also have God of War.
Yeah.
But anyway, my favorite Fire Emblem game, I would have to say, It would have to be right now, like, cause this could change, cause I'm in the middle of three houses. I'm like, well, I'm in the beginning of three houses, and everyone loves three houses. But right now, I'd say, Fire Emblem Awakening, because that was the one that I started with. That's the one that really, got me, made me fall in love with the series. And, I felt just so invested in those characters. And also, like, some of those characters aren't Smash. Actually, the joke is that there are way too many sword fighters in Smash. And, we have copies because it's Crom and Lucina and yada yada. But for Fire Emblem right now, I'd say Fire Emblem Awakening. Once I get more into three houses, I can let you know if it's switched. And then there's also Engage too. Legend of Zelda. Legend of Zelda? That's a little tougher. Because I played quite a few of them. For the Legend of Zelda, I would have to say, because again, they all have their pros and cons. This is tough.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to give it to. See, I don't want to say Ocarina of Time because that's like. I want to say that's like the cliche answer.
Yeah, that's what everyone says.
That's what everyone says.
What would you say it's a tie with?
Breath of the Wild,
okay.
I'd say. But I think actually, I think I'm just going to give it to Breath of the Wild because the sense of exploration that you have in that game is incredible. That game came out for the Wii U, not for the Switch. It came out for the Wii U and then they ported it to the Switch. And I played it on the Switch. I never played it on the Wii U. And it's, for people who don't know, and I didn't mention this before, it's an open world. So in the past, you would have to go to different dungeons and there'd be somewhat of a linear path. With this game, with Breath of the Wild, you can go to the final boss if you want to, straight from the beginning. You're not going to do very well, but you can go right to the end and you can skip everything. I did not do that, but the fact that you have that option, the fact that that they open it up so much and just really let you choose is something that I love. And for my favorite Pokemon game, it's a tie. Normally I would say, Pokemon. Well, I'd say either Yellow, because that was the original that I played. But that game, it holds up today, but it's not necessarily the best. But what myself and a lot of people say across the community is Heart Gold is like the standard. Heart Gold and Soul Silver, those are both remakes of Gold and Silver. It's the second generation of Pokemon, and they introduced so many quality of life improvements. They came out for the DS. Yeah. And they brought back so many different mechanics. Their improved graphics. They packed so much into that game that it's beloved by honestly almost every Pokemon fan. But I will say it is tied with Pokemon Arceus or Arceus.
The Legends.
And that was Legends. Pokemon Legends Arceus. And I know it's pronounced Arceus, whatever. Come at me. I'll fight you. I'm kidding. I won't. But, or will I? It is, you are thrown all the way back in time, back into the, prehistoric kind of, or like early, what was Sinnoh from Generation 4. Yeah, Diamond and Pearl. You're thrown back into the old Sinnoh, back when Pokemon were still kind of regarded as like weird, mythical, kind of scary things, because they are. And this game, it focuses on battling a little bit, but it also focuses much more on exploration. Well, not on exploration, but more like the catching mechanic. So one of the big thing in Pokemon, it's like, you gotta catch them all, and that's how they marketed it to kids. And you gotta catch them all. You gotta get all the cards, get all the games, get all the toys.
To get all 1,000 Pokemon.
Yeah, all the Pokemon. Excuse me. And back then in the late 90s, it was 100 and 150 or 151 because of Mew.
Yeah.
And Pokemon Legends Arceus focuses on the catching aspect, much more of the battling. There is battling, but there's not as big of an emphasis on it. And even, honestly, even with the battling mechanic, they switched that up too. You can do like a fast move and like maybe a slower, powerful move. I'm getting into the really nitty gritty here, but like the small details is like when you're battling, you can like move the camera around and like kind of see the other opponent's Pokemon and stuff like that. There is, it's basically, it's an open world Pokemon. It's an open world Pokemon, and you can catch all sorts of different Pokemon, and you catch them, you research them, and you record your findings and stuff like that. And it's awesome. I love it. So I would say that it's really a tie between those three.
Okay. Yeah. I of those three, I have played Heart Gold and I have played Yellow, and they are incredible games. I haven't played Arceus yet, though. I've been wanting to. Like, that's the one game that intrigued me to get a Switch.
Okay.
I'm kind of waiting to see what Nintendo will announce for their next console, and if it will be like backwards compatible with the Switch games.
I hope so.
So I could just buy that instead of buying a Switch and then a new console immediately comes out.
Yeah.
That's how it usually is with me. I get a console and then the next one immediately comes out. But here's another question, though.
Yes.
Out of all the like over 1,000 Pokemon that are alive, I guess.
What is my favorite?
What would you say is your favorite non-starter Pokemon?
That's a good question.
Not Charmander, not Pikachu, not Bulbasaur, not Squirtle. Like your favorite Pokemon that's not a starter.
Oh, wow. That's a very good question. I have a handful. I have a handful that I look for in every game. And one of them is Pidgey, because I love Pidgeotto and I love Pidgeot. And so that's, I always try to look for those in the games, which those, like, as the games have gone on, they kind of pick and choose what to put in for different generations. I am a little more biased towards, some of the originals because that's what I grew up with. But I'd say Pidgeotto, Pidgeot, which I just mentioned, Gengar, because in the past I was never really able to get one, and now they've made it a bit easier to get a Gengar. And it goes Ghastly, Haunter, and then you need to trade with a friend in order to get Gengar. Yeah. There are certain Pokemon that you had to have like special conditions in order to get. So yeah, Gengar. Who else is my favorite non-starter Pokemon? Can I throw in legendaries in there?
I guess, yeah.
I would say, I guess, I guess I'll do three. Pidgey, Gengar, and I'm going to do four because I can't exclude Ho-Oh and Lugia.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah.
Both of the Heart and Gold Gold and Silver legendaries.
Yeah.
No love for Suicune though.
Oh no, Suicune's awesome. Are you kidding me? How can you not? Like I
feel like that's like one of the Pokemon games that people always forget about is Pokemon Crystal,
Oh, see, I would say the opposite. I'd say anyone who ever talks about the old Pokemon games says that Crystal is like, if you're talking from, the 2D era, which goes from, for those listening who, are curious, it goes from Pokemon Red and Blue all the way to, all the way to Diamond and Pearl. Right?
Yeah.
No, I'm lying. It goes all the way from Red and Blue, past Diamond and Pearl to Black and White, because that was the last game in like the 2D era.
Yeah.
Black and White introduced like the 2.5D. But
yeah, it was like a mix between 3D and 2D. So. And
I also trying to thought, what were we talking about? You were talking about my favorite.
You were talking about oh gosh, what was it? You were talking about Crystal. Yeah, Crystal. We were talking about.
Oh yes, right. Wow. Yes. So in regards to like the best 2D Pokemon game back then, Crystal from everyone that I talk to, or at least what I see on the discourse online, they say that is the best. So,
Interesting.
yeah. Well, that's those are our lists. What we want to know is, what are your favorite genres? Like, what are not genres? What are your favorite franchises? Like, what stuff do you guys like to play?
And also, going forward for this podcast, we're going to be trying to cover more news in the video gaming and pop culture world. So, for example, our next episode will be covering some of the games and announcements from this year's Summer Game Fest and the Xbox Showcase.
Yes.
But in preparation for that, we had another question for you guys. So, where do you guys usually get your gaming news? Like, is it from social media, like Instagram, Twitter, X, articles, maybe? Yeah.
Google, who knows?
Yeah. YouTube, maybe.
Yeah, so let us know. Let us know where you guys get your news, and we're interested in your feedback.
Yeah. And I'm not sure if we mentioned this before, but this will be a weekly podcast, or it should be weekly. Well, you never know what will happen. But yeah, so we're going to be covering that. And if you want us to talk about anything specific, just let us know in the comments.
Yeah, shoot us a message.
Whatever is on Spotify. I'm not too familiar with that medium, but we'll see. So.
All right. Well, thank you guys for listening, and we can't wait to put out the next episode of Press Start.
Yeah. I guess we'll see you guys next time.
All right. Well, bye.
Bye.